Welcome back. That was the score. Just bring us up to speed with events as they unfolded. Very interesting scenes there indeed, in the Premier League. But the key talking point throughout the week has been Jose Mourinho's sacking. Not many saw it, but it is what it is. And moving on, we'll just have to wait and see what next Jose Mourinho has in store. Then talking about that, the East African, fraternities all looking at Kenya in the African Club Volleyball Championships. We'll be updating you on what's been happening, but locally, it is the African Rally Championship leg, which is the Equator Rally here in the country. Very interesting indeed. At the moment, Carl Flash Tundo and Joseph Tim leading in a Volkswagen Golf, Volkswagen Polo or GTI, then followed by Rai Tajveer and Dow Gareth again in a Volkswagen Polo, GTI. Then also looking at Baldi Chaga and Sony Ravi in a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo. Then Mangata Jasa and Kamia Joseph from Uganda, the first non-Kenyans in the rally in position number 4. Very interesting indeed. But as we look at that, let's just enjoy a small feature around rugby. Then when we start off, we will be talking about wheelchair rugby. Very interesting sport in the country. Let's enjoy that feature, then get back and go straight into matters wheelchair rugby. That's just a precursor. What is a wheelchair rugby? Interesting topic to talk about. We know the game of rugby being a contact game, very physical indeed, lots of body contact, but there is another angle to rugby, which is the wheelchair rugby. We want to talk about this to understand what happens in wheelchair rugby and how the game is played. What kind of equipment do they use? We've just seen in the small clip that there is a lot of contact. How safe is it? When we look at the key players in this, they are able differently, but they've shown that they can as well perform and do exceptionally well in the different sporting disciplines that we have. Let me take the opportunity to introduce the guests with us in studio. And of course, as a result of COVID-19, we are looking at our safety protocols and also using technology so that we can bring all stakeholders on a round table to have a discussion on the same. I'm joined in studio by Mr. Caleb Odio. Caleb Odio is the chairman wheelchair rugby here in the country. He will be letting us know what wheelchair rugby is all about, and of course also let us know how the sport is played. Mr. Caleb Odio, karibu sana, and thank you very much for making time to be with us this afternoon. Well, also joining us via technology, we are privileged and honored to be joined by Reverend Stephen Jones. Reverend Stephen Jones is the chaplain Ospreys wheelchair rugby team and also director of All Ability with Sports chaplaincy, joining us from the UK. Reverend Stephen Jones, good afternoon, and I hope you can hear me very well. Well, trying to get connectivity to Reverend Stephen Jones, who is joining us all the way from UK to just help us talk about wheelchair rugby. But as we do that, let's start with Caleb here in studio. Caleb, first and foremost, we are in tough times, COVID-19. First and foremost, I hope you're keeping well. And of course, the sport comes in, but safety and keeping well becomes the #1 priority. Hope you're keeping well. Welcome to the studio and talk to us.
Thank you very much. I'm keeping well. Of course, keeping my distance, and we hope the pandemic will end and we go back to our sports as normal.
Well, as we look at that going into sports resumption in the country, we know very well that the government put on hold, suspended all sporting activities in the country. But a sport that is coming up like wheelchair rugby is one that many would want to really understand how wheelchair rugby is, is performed, how it is organized, and stuff like that. You mind just telling us what wheelchair rugby is all about, for the sake of the Kenyans and the public at large, to understand what wheelchair rugby is and what are the difference between it and normal rugby that we see with abled differently people?
Wheelchair rugby basically is played inside court, whereby it is played with 4 athletes, but a team consists of 12 players. There's 4 quarters, each lasting 8 minutes. The aim of the game is to, each team has to try and pass the ball to each other until they score. That's a try to the other side. There is 40 seconds time, score time, that you have to play from the time you're inbounding the ball from your back court to the front court. You have 40 seconds to score. While the other thing is that a team has 12 seconds from its own back court to the middle part of the court. They play in classes because there are different players with different capabilities, so they are classed according to each player's ability. So there is a class from 0.5 to 3.5, the highest class. Yes.
Very interesting. As you call out that, let me ask before, we will be engaging Steve shortly as well, to just jump into this. How big is the court that, this is played on?
The court is basically half of the basketball court.
As we look at half the basketball court, you've said 40 seconds to score. Yes. Talk to us about the score. How do you get a try? Because in rugby we talk about tries and their conversions. How does conversions and try come to play in wheelchair rugby?
Okay, there are 2 cones set up at each end of the court, whereby an athlete who has to score a try has to get 2 of his main tires past the end line, which makes it a try against the 2 cones that are set.
When you say end line, it is the typical or the normal try line that we see in normal rugby.
Yes.
What about if one has to, it doesn't matter where you score from. How many points does one get? Is it 5 like in rugby where a try is 5? In rugby, there is the extra 2, which is a conversion. In this case, the extra 2 does not apply. But the 5 points?
It doesn't apply. We only count 1-1 score. So every time you pass the line, it's a score. It's only counted 1.
So it is 1 as opposed to 5 that we see in rugby?
Yes.
Wow, interesting indeed. As we look at this, how long has the sport been in existence in Kenya, and what are you doing to popularize the sport?
Okay, in Kenya now this is our 2nd year. We've been trying very much to try and establish it in regional schools, and basically the schools with children with disabilities. And last year we had plans to go out and get players within the several regions in the country, but unfortunately the pandemic came in, so we had to suspend everything. But at the moment we have good plans. We hope when the schools reopen again after the pandemic, we are going to go back to schools and try to establish it in all disability schools, so that the game grows from there, which it will be easy on us, and also engage. There are some NGOs that are working with physically challenged individuals who got accidents, who we hope we can work with to at least to rehabilitate them, and in the due course also get good players from them.
Well, as we look at that, interesting that at the second year this is coming up and a lot to talk about. Remember, also joining us is Reverend Stephen Jones, chaplain, Ospreys wheelchair rugby team and director of All Ability with Sports chaplaincy in the United Kingdom, joining us as well. Reverend Stephen Jones, good afternoon. I believe it's good afternoon as well because the time difference is 2 hours from here and the UK. Good afternoon.
Thank you for your greetings. Good afternoon to you, and greetings to you and to Caleb from Wales. It's lovely to be with you.
Thank you very much. I hope you're keeping well and staying safe. We are in tough times and, you know, we're just trying to adjust to the new norm.
Yes, we're keeping positive and we're testing negative at the moment, Amfer.
Thank you very much. I like the statement, keeping positively and testing negatively. That's a good one. Thank you very much. Also, joining us is Caleb Odio. Caleb, somebody you know very well. Probably Caleb, you can say hi to Steve as well.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Caleb. Lovely to hear your voice again.
Me too.
Thank you very much. Steve, Reverend Steve Jones, just to, you know, to also shed some light around wheelchair rugby. Steve has panned out a bit. You might just shed some light as well in the UK as the chaplain Ospreys wheelchair rugby team. How is, you know, wheelchair rugby and how popular is it in the UK?
Well, wheelchair rugby is very well established in the UK. And we have many teams. We have a number of leagues, and we have a national team in Wales, in Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland. And at Paralympic times, in a Paralympic year, which is like this year, we compete as one nation, Great Britain. So we will have a national team competing later this summer in the Tokyo Paralympics. Wheelchair rugby has been in existence for many years in the UK. And the team that I'm associated with, the Ospreys wheelchair rugby team, we are the leading wheelchair rugby team in Wales. We have a senior team with many players, and in the last few years we've also started a junior team for under 16s. And I'm pleased to report, Amfer, that is growing, as are the number of clubs elsewhere in Wales and in the UK. And we are thrilled to see the sport growing in Europe and around the world.
Thank you very much, and congratulations being the leading team in Wales at the moment. That's Ospreys wheelchair team. Before I engage Caleb here in studio again, Caleb, you know, hinted to me off air that you are kind enough to be supporting them in terms of getting this most expensive equipment that they desperately need, which is the wheelchairs. Talk about that as you know,
Yes.
you help us understand how expensive these wheelchairs are.
Yes, one of the biggest barriers to the development of wheelchair rugby, Amfer, is the cost of the specialized chairs. Wheelchair rugby is a full contact sport, and so the chairs are reinforced with high grade metal, which means they are very expensive. In the UK, they can cost anything between £3,000 and £5,000. Now you will have to do the conversion for me into Kenyan shillings, but £3,000, £5,000 are very expensive for one playing chair. And we know from our own history as a club how difficult it is to purchase chairs and to raise funds. But our success in the last few years as a club has meant that we built up a reserve of, shall we say, older chairs as we've replenished our stocks. And when I was working in the Commonwealth Games in Australia in 2018, I encountered the president of the Kenyan National Paralympic Committee. She noticed on my day bag that I had an Ospreys wheelchair rugby logo, and she asked me for a coffee and for a conversation about could we help at all develop and invest in developing wheelchair rugby in Kenya. And so I was very pleased to come a few months after that to Nairobi, where I met Caleb and some of the other wheelchair basketball players and some of the National Paralympic Committee. And again, it became obvious to us that there was a great need for some chairs, for some specialist playing chairs to be brought to Kenya to kickstart wheelchair rugby. And my team in Wales, our coaches and our players, they decided to take this on as a bit of a project and to donate some of our chairs and to have some of our chairs reconditioned, and then to donate them, to send them out to Caleb and the growing Wheelchair Rugby Federation in Kenya to be able to help and support you guys grow the game there. And our hope and our prayer is that we could strengthen the ties between our two teams, that we may perhaps possibly have a twinning arrangement between the teams. And who knows, guys, maybe even a match between Ospreys wheelchair rugby team and the Kenyan wheelchair rugby team. Wouldn't that be something to look forward to?
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Stephen Jones, and a very good gesture there indeed from you and your entire team. When you talk, when Steve talks about the President Kenya Paralympics, definitely that must be Agnes Oluoch, who has been very instrumental in terms of ensuring that Paralympics are supported in the country. Before I go back to Reverend Steve, Caleb, as the chairperson of the Kenya Wheelchair Rugby here in the country, what are your visions? So what would you want to achieve by the end of the day as Caleb, being the pioneer, chairperson of wheelchair rugby?
The main thing I would love to achieve or target is basically to get all the schools with children with disability playing wheelchair rugby. And through that, we can get good players that we can bring them up to the national team level and maybe play it in the national school games and later to national events and maybe play South Africa, because I understand South Africa is playing wheelchair rugby, and maybe beat them to the Olympics. Yes.
It's good you've mentioned the Olympics, and Reverend Steve also spoke about the Olympics. That clearly says that wheelchair rugby is an Olympic sport. That clearly gives you, a target. Are you looking at maybe one day before you step down, or when you look at Kenya wheelchair rugby, you can sit back comfortably and, proudly say that you are part of the team that started the journey towards ensuring that Kenya is represented in wheelchair rugby in the Olympics?
Yes, I'm looking forward to that, because it's a great achievement. Personally, I've been playing wheelchair basketball, and you find that in wheelchair basketball we have athletes who are very strong. Unlike in wheelchair rugby, the athletes there have multiple disabilities, so it's very hard to engage them in sports. So it's very nice to get players who have severe disabilities coming into sports. This is an area that has been neglected for long, which in most cases in Kenya you find them only as spectators, and we are happy to engage them and looking forward to make a national team out of the severe disability that we have in Kenya.
Reverend Stephen Jones, let me engage you on this just to find out your thoughts. Kenya has always been known to be a very, very strong nation in rugby, more so rugby sevens, where Kenya are perennial achievers. Many look at them from an African point of view as perennial achievers, always in the HSBC Sevens series. Based on that, do you think, with the little knowledge that you've already gained from Chris and team, do you think Kenya can be a force to reckon with in the near future from a wheelchair rugby point of view?
I very much think so. I'm fair. When I was in Nairobi, I met Caleb and some of his colleagues. It's obvious that the players are very passionate, very strong, very committed. And if I'm honest, one of my fears, fair, is maybe down the line that the Kenyan team in many years' time would be so strong that they would beat our Wales and Britain team. So I think that's my fear. But I'm aware that things need to begin somewhere. So a number of years ago, when wheelchair rugby was small in the UK, we had to begin competing with as the plan is in Kenya, by the sound of it, for schools to compete against each other, and then for neighboring countries to compete against each other. And I know there are similar beginnings of wheelchair rugby in Uganda and Rwanda and Cameroon. Certainly South Africa is the leading African nation at the moment. But at some point, I imagine there will be an African Wheelchair Rugby Championships. And I personally don't think it will be too long before Kenya will be vying for the top position there. So, yeah, I don't know whether longer term, Amfer, I've put my country of Wales in jeopardy by kickstarting wheelchair rugby in your country. It's likely you will overtake us in time because you have big, strong players there.
Steve, it's a good problem to have, you know, from a Kenyan point of view. And we would also be looking at it that when the story is told one time, the name Reverend Stephen Jones will be part of the story in terms of development and positioning Kenya, you know, to be at the top. It's a good problem to have, and wishing, you know, you and the Wales also all the best as you look at this. But your name will be in history books as one of the pioneers in the journey. Caleb, with this goodwill from Reverend Stephen Jones
there are very strong links already, between
Please, go ahead.
The Welsh Rugby Union and the Kenyan Rugby Union in the able-bodied rugby. My hope and my prayer is that there would be equally strong links between the Wales Wheelchair Rugby Federation and the Kenyan Wheelchair Rugby Federation, and we will follow with great interest and great support, I promise you.
Well, that's a good point there indeed, because even the able differently rugby, the Sevens, Wales is a very strong team. Caleb, with the goodwill now from Reverend Stephen Jones and the team in the UK, does this put pressure on you as the team here in Kenya, and also as the chairperson wheelchair rugby, to pick up and move with a lot of speed to position the country, you know, to be one of the best in the world, if not in Africa? Does this put pressure on you because the goodwill is already there?
Yes, it puts a lot of pressure, and I'm glad that through his initiative, we joined an online course in wheelchair rugby, and I'm glad that this morning we got certificate, level 1 certificate of wheelchair rugby. At least 6 of my colleagues have a certificate, and we hope and believe we'll be sending them to go and train in the schools. And we have the perfect idea, and with the good support from Steve, definitely we'll get something out of it.
Very good and positive move there indeed. Reverend Steve, let me ask this, you know, wheelchair rugby. Many look at it, and from the clips that we've seen, one can argue that it is, you know, a dangerous sport. We all know that, fine, rugby is a contact sport, and there can be moments of danger. It depends on which side of the coin you're looking at it, but as a player, it's very interesting. How safe is the sport, that's wheelchair rugby, Steve?
Yes, having said it's a full contact sport, there are safeguards built into the sport. So there is a classification system, a points system for each player, depending on the severity of their disability. And the most severely disabled sit in a much lower chair, so there's very, very little possibility of the chair turning over or falling out. So the players with the severest physical disability are well protected. So there's safeguards in place, although it can look quite violent on times. In fact, one person has described wheelchair rugby as violent chess. There's a lot of strategy involved and a lot of contact, but the world governing body has built in a number of safeguards, particularly the classification system. And I'm pleased to report, Amfer, that, you know, our team has been in existence now for many years. We've not had any serious injury. We have the occasional broken finger or broken thumb from collisions, but no major injury. So the safeguards work well. And constantly the chairs are being improved. we have a manufacturer here in Wales who I should mention to you actually, because they were instrumental in helping get the chairs out to you guys and into reconditioning the chairs. And yeah, the technology is developing all the time. And going forward, I would say that obviously to increase the capacity of wheelchair rugby in Kenya, somehow you will need to get more playing chairs into different schools, increase the number of chairs. And my hope and prayer is maybe that some businesses would perhaps sponsor for you. We have businesses in the UK that sponsor our team, enable us to buy the specialist chairs for children with disabilities. And my prayer will be that maybe some Kenyan businesses would step up to the plate and sponsor your team, thereby enabling further chairs to be bought. And the chairs that you buy now are very safe and very well designed. Is that helpful?
Yes, that is very helpful, Reverend Stephen Jones. Just a question before I engage Caleb again. Is it a male-female sport, as in you can have both gender? Are there cases where you can have mixed, gender in the same team as they play?
That's correct. That's correct. It's a unisex sport, male and female in the same team. And the classification system, the points system recognizes that. So it's a very inclusive game. And from my own experience, Amfair, sometimes at training when if they're short of a few players, they put me, the chaplain, in the chair to make up the numbers. And I have to say some of the female players are the most ferocious, the most competitive. So I would say, Caleb, if you have some female girl athletes, underestimate them at your peril.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting that all gender, sensitive has been taken into account. Very positive indeed. As we talk about this, Caleb, right here in studio, we look at infrastructure and you realize that the infrastructure is not the same from what we are hearing from Caleb. They've been in existence for a couple of years now. Here in Kenya, it's just taking off. Talk to us about the training facilities. What kind of, court do we need? Is it a sport that can be played in any surface? Infrastructure critical for this. Talk to us about infrastructure.
Okay, about the infrastructure, for us, it's a big challenge because you find most of the courts that we are using, like, for example, if I give an example of Nyayo, it's tartan, it's rubber. So it's not suitable for wheelchair rugby. The only court that is suitable for wheelchair rugby is maybe Kasarani, where it's board on the ground, which is suitable. But because we are playing in schools, we are using cemented surfaces. At the moment, we are taking it slow, but we hope and believe by the time we get to having a national team, we'll be able to access Kasarani Stadium, where I believe the athletes will be more competent to handle the situation.
Well, it is a prayer that that can be sorted out and we can have existing infrastructure so as to challenge ably Reverend Stephen Jones and the rest of the teams in Wales and the world at large properly, and very soon we can catch up with them. Before we proceed with this, for the interest of my viewers back at home, let's just get this feature to understand more about wheelchair rugby. Then when we come back, we have our closing, topics around this. Let's enjoy that clip to understand more what wheelchair rugby is all about.
Wheelchair rugby is actually the only team sport there is for quadriplegics.
One of the very few sports where both men and women play on the same teams.
Whether a young person, old person, elite athlete, it's for everybody.
Having access to that and knowing most of the players are open to sharing and helping other people, it's a big part of our sport.
This is a combat sport.
C'est ce qui est bon, ça, c'est le rugby, c'est du contact.
Wheelchair rugby has 7 classes. So the lowest class is the 0.5 class, and that means that's the athlete with the most impairment. The highest class is the 3.5 class, and that is the athlete with the least impairment.
It's a team of 12 players, but at any given time there are only 4 players on the court. A team of 4 athletes on the court can't exceed 8 points. If you have a woman on the court, you can run 8.5 points.
High-level player, they are fast, they can wheel, they can pass the ball.
The low point is the more severely disabled. They are the key players and they play defensive roles and provide the opportunity for the high point player to score.
You don't need lights, you don't need anything. All you need is a ball and 4 cones and you have a game.
They are indeed looking at all that. It tells you that there can be a lot to talk about. We are looking at the technical aspects of the sport now. And before I engage Caleb here in studio, Reverend Stephen Jones, are you looking at as a way of supporting to popularize and get the sport take off well, seconding or getting our fellow brothers and sisters are here in Kenya, the opportunity to interact so that you can, bring up the standards of the sport through technical expertise, the referees, the coaches, training, etc. Is that something you're looking at to work with Caleb and team in terms of sharing technical expertise and exchange of, technical knowledge?
That have what's called a development department, and there is a development officer for, there's a wasp in my room at the moment, have a development person for Africa, and the plan is to put on coaching clinics and rugby clinics in Africa, in Kenya, and the person is, I'm not driving that myself, the person that drives that is within the International Wheelchair Rugby Federation. And the plan is in the coming months and years to capacitate Caleb and his colleagues and coaches and volunteers to increase the standards. So over and above the strategic endeavors of the Federation, personally, myself, I've met Caleb, I consider him a friend and a brother. I would love to be able to bring Caleb and perhaps some of his coaching colleagues to Wales to spend some time maybe interacting with our coaches in our team. Our head coach at the Ospreys team is the head of the Invictus Great Britain wheelchair rugby team. So he's very experienced. And I would love to be able to, as I said, receive Caleb and his colleagues, perhaps to have some coaching experience in Wales. And as I said, I would love to be able to twin our team with a Kenyan team, and then we could benefit from mutual exchanges of expertise and as well as the cultural exchanges as well. So, yeah, we consider you as a brother nation, really, and we'd love to help you support that. But centrally, the International Wheelchair Rugby Federation has training courses. Caleb's referred to the Level 1 coaches training course. There is a structure in place to develop wheelchair rugby in nations that are serious about exploring it. And as the sign says behind me here, the future is bright, I believe, for wheelchair rugby in your country.
And always be bright and looking forward to the same. As we start winding up for this, Caleb, I'll give you your parting, short. As you tell us your closing remarks, just let us know what are your maybe 5 years plan from now in terms of positioning wheelchair rugby as a big sport here in the country as you wrap up your remarks?
One thing you will notice is that there has never been a big competitive team in Kenya in terms of Paralympic sports. I believe that wheelchair rugby is going to emerge as one of the most competitive teams in Kenya, and I believe it's going to be the first team sport to bring a medal home.
Well, we're wishing you all the best in that front, and hoping that very soon we shall be seeing a Kenyan team in wheelchair rugby in the Olympics. Reverend Stephen Jones, your closing remarks as we close out this.
My closing remarks, Humphreys, I think that's a wonderful vision that Caleb has cast for you there and your countrymen. And as I said, we want to support you in that. What I would say, Caleb, is if the wheelchair rugby team of Kenya would be the first team sport to bring home a medal, I would just say I hope it's a silver one and that Wales would have the gold in the final match, okay?
Yeah, sure.
We're a very competitive nation. We're very friendly and very supportive, but we're very competitive in our sport. So may the best team win, my brother.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Stephen Jones, chaplain, Ospreys wheelchair rugby team and director of All Ability with Sports Chaplaincy in the UK. Reverend Steve, we wish you all the best and we'll be monitoring your performance in the Olympics and, of course, wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest and thank you. It's been lovely to be with you. Take care.
Thank you very, very much. Of course, thank you very much, Caleb Odio, who is the chair person, wheelchair rugby Kenya, and wishing you all the best as well.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Thank you very much. That has been a discussion around wheelchair rugby. It's a sport that is steadily growing up here in the country. Reverend Stephen Jones, chaplain, Ospreys wheelchair rugby team and director of All Ability with Sports chaplains in the UK, really supporting the team in terms of ensuring that equipment, technical expertise, is provided to the team. Very, very good indeed and very positive from him. One thing that I picked from Reverend Stephen Jones is staying positively and testing negatively. A very good way, to stay during these tough COVID times. It's a sport that we'll be monitoring and we'll let you know what happens around the same. Well, up next, we are talking about the World Rally Championship, the WRC, coming to Kenya in a couple of months' time. Currently, we have the African Rally Championships taking place in Naivasha. We have the Equator Rally. It's coming down, and as we speak, it's heavily raining cats and dogs in Naivasha. But Carl Flash Tundo still leading before, we got into this rain. Our very own Meriwa Vinya is out in Naivasha and put up a few clips of what's been happening there, and we just want to get an update of what's been happening and what's happening. At the moment as we speak, it's raining heavily in Naivasha. Remember, we are keeping an eye and we'll be letting you know. Let's enjoy the clip of what's been happening in Naivasha from the Equator Rally scene, which is an African rally leg of the WRC. Let's enjoy that.